What's going on, everyone? This is Kevin here, coming at you with my review of the Unihertz TickTock-S rugged smartphone. So without further ado, let's get started. Now, I'd like to thank Unihertz for being kind enough for sending this phone out to me to cover here on the channel. All opinions expressed in this video, of course, are completely my own, and this is my first time ever testing out a Unihertz device. So when they did reach out, I was very curious to see what this company is all about. Now, this smartphone is very unique in the sense that it's packed full of different features, but the main feature here for the phone is this secondary display on the back. Now, this display can be used for a variety of different things, and I'll be showing you more about this later on in the video, but one of the functionalities is that you can get a clock here on the back of the phone. Now, the name of this phone, TickTock-S, kind of caught me off guard in the beginning, because it kind of seems like they were just copying the name of a popular social media app, but I believe what they're going for is that there's a clock on the back of the phone, hence TikTok. That being said though, I do feel like the name of this device probably creates a little bit more confusion than there should be. Now, this device is being offered factory unlocked and features an MSRP of $269, and I will be linking to it in the video description for your convenience. Now, before we get too far into things here with the device itself, let's see what all comes included here in the box. Now, in the box is a 33-watt USB wall adapter. We get a double-sided USB-C cable for charging and data transfer, and we get an adapter so that you can plug 3.5mm headphones into the USB-C port on the device. We also get this packet with a SIM card removal tool, but there's no actual instructions or anything else in the packet itself. Now, with the Unihertz TickTock-S, we're getting a very large 6.53-inch display, and this display does feature Panda MN228 glass, so it does make it extra durable. Now, the display itself is LCD. It is a 1080p display running at 60 Hz. We're getting a PPI of 395, and we're getting a 19.5:9 aspect ratio. So overall, for a rugged phone, we do have pretty small bezels, and I do like that we do have a hole punch for the front-facing camera situated in the upper left corner. Now, the front-facing camera on this phone is 32 megapixels, and stay tuned for later on in the video, as I'll be showing you a variety of different photo and video samples from this device. Then flipping around to the subscreen on the back of the phone, this is a circular display, and it does feature a resolution of 360 by 360. And it is 1.3 inches. Now, with this device, we're getting 128 gigabytes of internal storage along with microSD card expansion. And then with this device, there is no wireless charging, which is a bit unfortunate. Now, thankfully, there is a fingerprint sensor on the power button, and it is nice and responsive and quick. So that's very accurate, certainly a good thing to have that there. And in addition to that, this phone does feature face unlock, so I do appreciate that we have multiple methods here for accessing the phone. Now, on the back of the device, we have a dual camera setup with a 64 megapixel main camera and a 2 megapixel macro camera. And unfortunately, there's no portrait mode for either the front or rear cameras on this device. Now, here's how things look on the camera app. This is with the main camera right now. Then from here, we have options for Pro mode. There's also macro mode, so you can get very close up and have things be in really good detail. There's also even macro video, so you can take close-up videos, which you don't always find with too many other smartphones, even ones that do have macro cameras. We can also head over to the regular video mode, and we have some different choices for resolution. You can actually go up to 2K for the resolution, which is pretty interesting, and then 1080p for the maximum for the front-facing camera. Speaking of the front-facing camera, we can flip around then and take a look at that. So there's me right there, and overall, I would say the quality is pretty good from the various cameras, but I'll let you be the judge when I show you some various samples later on in this video. Now, internally here with the device, we're getting 8 gigabytes of RAM paired up with the MediaTek Dimensity 700 5G processor. So it is nice that this phone does have 5G, despite it being a pretty affordable lower-end phone. Now, as far as the processor goes, it's a decent mid-range processor, providing pretty good performance. Definitely don't expect this phone to be too fast, especially compared to phones that are in the $1,000 price range. You're certainly getting what you're paying for here with this device, so keep that in mind. But at the same time, for what it is, I feel like the performance of this phone is pretty good. Certainly, if you're going to use the phone for the more basic tasks, such as phone calls, text messages, watching video content, going on social media, and browsing the web, it will get the job done for that. But maybe for some more advanced tasks, or if you're using the phone quite a bit for work, for example, then you might find some frustrations with it not being overly fast. And then with this device, we're getting a very large 5,200 milliamp hour internal battery, and it is nice that it does support fast charging with the included wall adapter. Now the software that we're getting here is Android 12, and it's pretty much a stock experience. There's not too much added in by Unihertz. Now to accommodate the subscreen on the back and a few other aspects of the phone, they've certainly made some modifications to Android, which does make sense. There's also some interesting features such as underwater camera, so you can go here, and then basically, when you're in this mode, you can't accidentally exit out of the camera, which makes it pretty good in underwater conditions, but you can exit out of this by just locking the screen and then heading back into the device. And speaking of which, this phone is water resistant, so you can take it underwater, which is nice. So that certainly goes along with the rugged theme here. And I almost forgot to show you this, but I did run a Geekbench 6 benchmark test with the phone, and I got a single core score of 699 and a multi-core score of 2008. So what I recommend doing is running this test on your current phone and then compare your scores to these scores to see how the Unihertz TickTock-S compares to what you currently have. And then another awesome thing about this device is that it does feature NFC, so if you want to use the phone for tap and pay, you can do that. But let's take a look at some photo and video samples from the Unihertz TickTock-S. Now I'll let these photo samples speak for themselves, but overall, I'm very impressed with the camera quality that we're getting here with the device. Now, compared to a $1,000 smartphone or a phone that's way more expensive than this one, the quality that we're getting isn't anywhere near that, but at the same time, you're certainly able to capture photos and videos that are plenty good and they're usable. Even the macro camera works really well too. It is disappointing that there's no portrait mode, but if you can look past that, then I feel like you will be happy with the cameras here on this device. But let's now take a look at some video samples. What's going on, everyone? This is Kevin here, coming at you with a 1080p front-facing test video from the Unihertz TickTock-S smartphone. Definitely curious to know what you think about the video and audio quality. And here is a 1080p test video using the main rear camera on the Unihertz TickTock-S smartphone. We have decently fast autofocus in video mode, which is really cool to see. And here's a 2K test video using the main rear camera on the Unihertz TickTock-S smartphone. And here is a macro video from the Unihertz TickTock-S. But let's now take a closer look at the subscreen on the back of the phone. This is pretty interesting and really unlike anything else I've seen on any other device I've covered here on the channel. So first thing is, I have it set right now that if you want to see what's on the display, you just double tap, and you can see right there it pulls up a watch. Now there are some different watch faces you can choose from, I'll show you that in a second, but you can actually swipe over and get other functionalities. So there's music, which you can actually pick the default music app for this. You can swipe over again for a compass. You can swipe over again for the camera. Now that's really cool. I'll let that load up. It does take a second here, but there's me right there. So that's really cool. I like that you can use basically the main camera for selfies. So I'm going to smile right now. And it took the photo, so that's awesome. Now, I do wish that it did support video recording, and unfortunately it does not. I think that's almost more useful in a sense, because if you want to take a video where you're framing yourself in the video, but you still want to use the rear camera, that functionality would be really helpful. Another interesting thing too is that you can actually flip around to the front-facing camera with this subscreen here. I'm not really sure in what situation this would make any sense, because you can just use the large screen on the other side to view the front camera, but nonetheless, I do appreciate that we at least have the option. Now, fortunately, Unihertz has given us a lot of different customizations for the subscreen, which I've found to be very impressive. For example, you can pick your clock plate or watch face. That's sometimes what it's called in other devices, but the clock plate. So when you go there, you can see a lot of different choices here. And it looks like you can even customize even further. So a lot of good stuff there. You can also pick the screen timeout, the backlight. You can also select if you want to access it by double tapping. Also under music, you can pick your default music app. You can also customize the resolution of the photos that you take with the cameras on that subscreen. So overall, just a lot of different ways to customize that. So is the subscreen a genuinely useful feature, or is it more of a gimmick? In my opinion, I feel like Unihertz is halfway there with this. I think if it had video recording as an option, that would make it even more useful. For me, I feel like the clock on the back is not that helpful. I know if you're in a meeting, it's kind of nice because you can just glance at it, but for me, that situation doesn't come up that often, and if that was really a problem that I had, I would probably just use a smartwatch instead. But regardless, I'm glad that they at least gave us that functionality, but I think the biggest benefit is the viewfinder for the camera. And then another signature feature with this device are the 2 customizable buttons. Now, those buttons are located right here in the side, and unfortunately, I cannot figure out how to actually customize them. So the top button, if you hold that down, it does turn on the flashlight, which that's useful in itself, but I guess you can also customize it further if you want to. I just can't figure it out. There are no directions in the box, and also, by the way, the second button is set to do nothing by default, but even if you go into the settings and you just type in button, there's nothing here to actually customize those buttons. So they need to make it a little bit more user-friendly. If me as a tech reviewer cannot figure this out, I can't see how a typical consumer would figure it out either. And to make matters even worse, I went on Google and I typed in Unihertz TickTock-S, how to customize side buttons, and there's no results to be found. So if they're not going to include directions in the box, and if they're not going to make it really straightforward when on the phone itself, then at least make it where I can do a web search and find out how to do that customization. So I'm sure it's hidden somewhere in here, and I'm just not figuring that out. But when I do my reviews, I try to reflect upon the experience that the typical consumer would have, and the typical consumer wouldn't really be able to find some sort of hidden menu. So they need to make that more user-friendly. But taking a closer look at the hardware overall, this is certainly a very rugged phone. Now, the question always stands, do you go for a rugged phone like this, or do you just take a regular smartphone and put a rugged case on it? It's kind of debatable which method is more worthwhile. One thing's for sure, this phone is very heavy, and I feel like that's not because of the battery, because the battery itself, while it does feature a large capacity at 5200, it's still not that much bigger than other phones that I've used that are way lighter. So definitely a lot of the weight here has to do with the materials the phone is made out of. But even if you took a regular smartphone and put a rugged case on it, this phone is a lot heavier than even a device like that. So you'll really have to think about if going for a rugged phone like this is worth it. Now, thankfully, if you want to stick with the Unihertz brand, they do offer a lot of other smartphones that are not rugged phones, so they do offer kind of something for everybody. But on the left side of the phone, we do have really nice build quality overall. I mean, the phone feels really solid, so I'll give them credit for that. We have the slot for the micro SD card and SIM card, those customizable buttons. Also, by the way, if I figure out how to customize those, I will update the video description or put it in a pinned comment, so be on the lookout for that. Or if someone knows, if you're watching this video and you know, let me know and I'll pin your comment. But on the right side of the phone, we have volume up, volume down, also the power button, which doubles as the fingerprint sensor. Then up top here, we have an IR blaster, which is pretty cool. Then on the bottom of the phone, we have the microphone. And then under this flap, we have the USB-C port. So pretty nice that is kept away from any possibilities of getting water damage. That's a pretty durable flap as well, so good implementation overall. Then on the back of the phone, I already talked quite a bit about a lot of this, but we have the main speaker, Unihertz branding, we have the dual cameras, the flash, and then the subscreen. So in conclusion, I definitely think there's a lot of potential here with the Unihertz TickTock-S. I feel like some of the innovations that this phone has are certainly very notable and not gimmicky either. For example, the subscreen, that's really nice. I like having this, especially for the viewfinder, that purpose. That's probably the most useful purpose that I could think of. But at the same time, I wish they would have made this compatible with video recording, because that would have really made it helpful. So they're halfway there with that. And then the customizable buttons, I do believe they work, but I wasn't able to actually customize those because I couldn't figure it out, but that's not gimmicky either. There's not too many phones that offer multiple customizable buttons, so that's great to see. The build quality is really solid too. So overall, I feel like this phone is a good attempt at Unihertz of creating a solid, rugged phone that's still practical. The processor is also decently capable too for a lower end, inexpensive smartphone. So I think maybe the biggest thing that's the most impressive about this device is that they're able to pack all of this in here for well under $300. So you really can't ask for too much in that price range. So I feel like overall, Unihertz does deliver. Now, this phone is certainly not a mainstream design by any means. I think most smartphone users wouldn't really go for a phone that's built like this, especially with how heavy it is. But if you are someone that's more outdoorsy, or maybe you work in an environment where you're more prone to dropping your phone, you want something really durable, or if you're someone who really can find a use for the subscreen, then Unihertz TickTock-S might be the perfect smartphone for you. But I hope you enjoyed my review of the Unihertz TickTock-S. Definitely take a look at the link in the video description to learn more about it. Thanks again to Unihertz for sending this out to me. And with all that said, I will see you in the next one.